Hello everyone, my name is Vivian Howell. I'm a junior at Monmouth University and my major is early childhood and elementary education and teaching students with disabilities. This podcast is a part of my classroom management course where I'm working on a project titled The Blueprints for Better Teaching. My group is focused on AI in the classroom and so all about what that is going to look like currently in the classroom. We're putting together research to support if it's a positive tool or a negative, harmful thing used. We want to know how teachers can utilize AI and if students can or should be using AI. It's a controversial subject on whether or not AI is something that should be used in the classroom. So today I brought in a special guest for our podcast, and her name is Dana Howell. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself to our podcast?
Sure. My name is Dana Howell. I'm the Director of Education at the Monmouth County Historical Association.
Great. Fantastic. So have you ever encountered AI at work or no?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm actually just starting to get into it. And I was a holdout at first, but it's pretty interesting. And just starting to use it a little bit more and learning about it.
Cool. So do you think that there are more pros or cons when using AI in an educational setting, like in a classroom?
I think you could probably find as many pros as you can cons. Mm-hmm. So for me, starting off as a historian before becoming an educator, before I bring the information to my students, there's always a lot of work involved in finding primary sources that are pertinent to whatever topic I might be teaching, whether it's daily life in the colonial era, the revolution, slavery. I'm usually in one of those categories, at any given point. So I'm just beginning to learn how to use certain AI technology to help pull those sources together. And it's kind of amazing because you do it at the touch of a button rather than spending hours sifting through research paper, footnotes and books and websites or whatever. So I'd say that's a pro, but the con would be that AI can definitely miss a great source that's, sort of within that topic, but not specifically described as such maybe, or sometimes it misinterprets what I'm looking for, or it's just completely off in one way or another. It can't really, think outside the box like we can. It's very literal.
I agree. It is pretty literal unless you prompt it to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, I think that you lose, or students lose a little bit of critical thinking skills if they're not going to be thinking of these things themselves and they're just asking AI to do everything for them.
Yes, absolutely. Another con would be that AI can't scour the documents and books that are not digitized. You still have to have the skills to know how to search through these things, which is important. And you need the skills and the background knowledge to know what's pertinent or accurate. You can never just take it at face value. I'll give you a perfect example of that, which just happened to me recently. We were trying to think of a cool way to get students to remember some facts about the revolution. I mean, I think history is awesome, but, I hear that some kids find it boring. And we figured, that we would try to use AI to make a song using prompts that we created. So we saw an option to do it in the style of Jay-Z, and we thought, well, that's awesome, really cool, kids will like that. And what it created was absolutely amazing, like radio quality. The lyrics were perfect, the music was awesome, I was so excited. And about a day or two later, I'm sitting at my desk, I'm kind of humming this song, I'm singing the lyrics to myself, and it all just kind of hits me. It created something so while it's sung by a bot, it's implied that it's a black man, and the lyrics are talking about America, we're the land of the free, and I'm like, oh God, this just doesn't work because as we all know, it'd be highly unlikely that this man would be singing this song at that time. He would not be free. So it was kind of killing me, this one major part. And I got to thinking that maybe we don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Maybe we make it a teachable moment. You have the kids listen to the song. Hopefully some of the facts stick. But then we ask them, does anybody see a problem with these lyrics and the person that's singing the song? And then just guide them to the conclusion that AI did not put two and two together insofar as the singer and the content of the song. It just very much missed that huge piece of it. So you do have to be careful with it, and you can't trust it to understand not just nuances, but even some really huge details.
I think that's pretty crazy, and that is a great example of how AI is so digitized and it's just not going to pick up on things the way an actual human can.
Right.
So next I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how students could utilize AI. I've seen a lot of research on this recently. Basically, at the click of a button, you can ask it to do your math homework. And I think that for someone like me that struggles very heavily with math, having the opportunity to be able to do that, like ask it to do one problem for me, is actually really helpful because then I'll be able to do the rest of the problems after having it mapped out perfectly the way it needs to be done. So obviously that's a pro of how students could utilize AI, but a con is that you can ask it to write papers for you and you can just paste it right in, and if your professor doesn't have an AI detector, you'll just cheat and have no skills doing anything.
Well, they're only hurting themselves, I guess, but it's hard for a student to understand that, right? For my purposes, I guess a positive would be that AI can be especially helpful in the creativity department, which is great for engaging them. It makes it fun. It makes them feel pride in something they've created. And those things usually make the facts or the point of whatever you're trying to teach them just stick somehow. And then we can analyze those creations. And a lot of times there's definitely something very off in AI images. I don't know if you've ever tried to use it before. Have you ever tried to create these images?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, and they're absolutely bizarre sometimes. So that's always a good conversation, sort of discussing what isn't accurate and, along with what is accurate. So
yeah, that's pretty wild, and I've seen the outcomes of a lot of things like that and seeing people who can't decipher what's real and what isn't.
Yeah.
I guess another con that I was thinking of is I feel like we are kind of going through a period in time where literacy is just going downhill. Like, students are not writing and reading and communicating as well as they used to be. And I think that AI is just not great for that. If it's going to be generating essays and having students not write anything, I think that can be really bad. And I think that the younger that students are using AI, that is probably going to be bad for them.
I think, well, yeah, I mean, but if you take it down to break it into smaller chunks, I think it can also help to break things down for them. So while the teacher might pass along a passage or a transcription or something, AI can help to summarize something that's very long or complicated.
Yeah.
To sort of help them with their comprehension.
Yeah.
And then, but on the flip side, it's not always accurate. So those inaccuracies are usually what I would have my older students focus on. Why do you think it came up with this? Where did it go wrong? It really makes them sort of flex their brains a little bit and think more in depth.
Yeah. Perfect. So do you think that students should have access to AI? Do you think that there's going to be too many negative effects in the long run?
I do think students should have access to AI. I don't really think there's a way around it regardless. So it's probably the same way my teachers felt about students using the internet. And look how far that's come, right? So
yeah.
Probably the same amount of pros as cons, but we learn for the most part how to use it responsibly. So there needs to be an understanding, I think, of responsible use. And that starts with the teachers, of course, and is probably going to need to start being taught at a very young age, responsible use, right? So if they become reliant on just using it for everything and taking everything at face value, that's going to pose a problem insofar as their ability to think critically.
Literacy in media and data is something that we talk about a lot in school, and it's something that is important to pass on to your students, to know what is real, what is not.
Yeah. You really need to ensure that they always think critically. We need to be able to ensure that they have the skills to debate an outcome. That's something I don't see many teachers doing anymore. It was big when I was growing up, but debating or even playing devil's advocate, which is I think probably one of the hardest skills to master. And then being, again, old school, I do think about the negative effects of instant gratification, the inability to have patience, which is now a skill that I think most of us are seriously lacking in, myself included. I was waiting on hold the other day, and I just furiously thought to myself, 3 minutes, are you kidding me? Do they think I have all day?
In reality, it's just 3 minutes.
I know.
It feels like forever.
So, yeah, that would be a pitfall, I guess. But, again, pros and cons.
Yeah, I agree. So, my last question that I wanted to ask you was, do you think that policies should be involved in each class to avoid misuse of AI? And if so, are these policies even possible?
I think there absolutely should be policies with AI, but that's with everything in the classroom. Otherwise, every day would be like an open book test, right? Or a simple matter of a Google search. I guess it's still new enough where many of us are just learning how to use it, particularly teachers. The kids are probably way more versed in it than we are. We haven't gotten to those checks and balances that are probably available. Things like Turnitin, to make sure we aren't plagiarizing or just turning in something that's not our own work. But I think that will come. And in time, I think students and teachers will be on a more level playing field, just like with the internet. So it's really just a matter of familiarity and maybe becoming comfortable with what's available.
That's a great answer. Do you think it should be up to the teacher or the principal?
Well, I guess it should be the principal so that everybody can kind of be a little bit more in line. I mean, you can't have one group of kids going to the next grade having been able to do something that maybe the classroom next to them couldn't have done.
Perfect. Well, is there anything else you wanted to talk about relating to AI today? Or that was my last question. I think we hit a lot of the good things. And I mean, to summarize what we talked about, it seems like every question you can go either way. There's so many pros, there's so many cons. And I think that just becoming aware of all those pros and cons for teachers is going to lead to better teaching in general.
Yeah, I agree with that. I definitely agree with that.
All right. Well, thank you for participating in my college project with me. I really appreciate it. To everybody listening, I have an Instagram account, and that is going to be linked on this YouTube page, which you can find along with my website. Have a great summer.
Thank you.
Thank you.